Presentation on Defense of Trump's Russia Stance by the Professor.
I realize that I'm presenting this at a time when virtually the whole United States Congress, defense community, and a good bit of academe are very highly critical of Donald Trump's recent meeting, I hesitate to call it a summit, with Russia's President Putin. I'm referring to this as a stance because I don't think it's a full-blown policy, but you should know that my background is in extremely liberal politics, so that if you think that I'm some sort of a conservative sycophant, you would be incorrect. I think that Trump did pretty well in Helsinki with President Putin, and I think that maybe a lot of the criticism is based on lack of knowledge of traditional diplomacy. I have taught courses in diplomacy for well over a decade, and I think I can bring a little bit of a different perspective to this discussion. For one thing, when you're engaged in diplomacy, whether it be with an ally or an adversary, you don't have an intimate 2-hour meeting one-on-one with an exchange of views and then go out in front of the world and completely diss your meeting partner. In other words, it would have been terrible from a diplomatic point of view for Trump to go out and do what his opponents wanted him to do, which is to put down Putin in public. That wasn't the purpose of this meeting. The meeting was to establish a framework for future diplomatic activities. So don't insult your friend and don't insult your adversary after you've had a meeting. The reason that it's so important that Trump and the United States make inroads in terms of Russia is because Russia, China, and America are currently the world's 3 greatest super nuclear powers. And it is important for Trump to have good relations with Justin Trudeau. And of course, it's a good thing to keep up with your NATO allies. But I think the president wants to play in the sandbox with the big boys. And right now, the big boys are Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin. So if you view these negotiations against that backdrop, I think you may come up with a different conclusion. It's very important that we work with Putin and Russia on dealing with North Korea, just as we must work with China. And we're all up to our heads in a mess in Syria, and working with Putin to try to lessen the impact of the civil war there is a good thing, not a bad thing. There are reasons also why Donald Trump, who's been forced to walk back at least one of his comments now, would feel a little hesitant about placing his complete trust in the United States intelligence community. Isn't it that very intelligence community that produced Strzok and Comey and Brennan and all the others who have gone out of their way to undermine his presidency from the word go? So if you were a world leader and you had people back home, by the way, this would not occur in Russia or China, but if you had people back home who were undercutting you at every turn, you might not have a lot of confidence in them either. So in summary, I do think that the meeting was a decent first step toward bettering diplomatic relations between Russia and the United States. And though most of us are critical of a good many things that the president may do, in this particular instance, I think that he conducted himself along the lines of a traditional American diplomat. One last side point. If Franklin Delano Roosevelt could get along with Joseph Stalin for the good of the World War II enterprise, then I certainly think that Barack Obama could have and Trump should try to get along and understand where Putin is coming from. All right, let's see what we have. How many minutes did we go? Did it tell you?